Hey guys, while we're resetting the stage here, I'm going to introduce our next speakers. It's Molly Cain and Jen Hoover, the Director and Deputy Director of the Office of Venture and Innovation at the Department of Homeland Security. So as a fellow woman in technology, I'm really excited to see such strong female leadership in DHS. And what they're going to do is they're going to come and speak to you a little bit about their mission, which is to drive innovation in DHS, and their philosophy of the innovation economy.
Thank you. Hey guys, as she mentioned, I'm Molly Cain. I'm the Director of Venture and Innovation for Homeland Security, and this is Jennifer Hoover, my deputy. So we're here today to not only learn from our fellow speakers and you guys and of course the Red Hat community, but we're also here for one really big reason. We have an idea, and if you like it, we want to encourage you to steal it. But not in the traditional stealing sense. We're giving you our thesis today, not because we have all the answers, nor should we. Nobody knows the future, and innovation is taking its own turn in the federal government right now as we speak. But in the spirit of openness here at Red Hat and here in this room, we think you might want to collaborate with us and make this a bigger idea. All right. So I'm certain you guys have seen this before, so I'm not going to read it out loud, but it's the nature of tomorrow, suggesting that you don't have to own the actual resource in order to successfully become the world's largest trader in it. And I know that you have not seen this one. We created this on Sunday night, so I know that for a fact, and it's also a crazy statement. We believe that the US federal government can become the nation's largest, highest performing innovation ecosystem comprised of 100% owners and with 0 customers. In 2025, we think we can all view the government as if we are the owners.
You probably think that we've gone off the deep end. In the next 30 minutes, we are going to try to convince you that we want you to steal this idea. First, we have to show you the ecosystem of today. Don't get trapped in the semantics. We talk in averages. What we see in our organization, you may see very differently in another organization. But we're looking at traditional to modern organizations and thinking of it from sort of a middle ground. So we're shooting for the middle. Okay. This is the Coca-Cola budget theory. The Coca-Cola budget principle is budgeting not only dollars, but time and resources and energy into what they do. They spend 70% of the time focused on the now. It's the stuff that you guys do every single day. 20% is what's next. It is the direct pathway between the day-to-day and the most innovative concepts. And 10% is the new. It is the high-risk, high-reward, innovative concepts.
All right. Okay, so we want to show you what we assume today to be in the federal government. We believe that it's 90% of now, the priorities, the executive orders, the reactive behavior in the government. We've got also our modernization and our IT and stabilizing outdated technologies right now. And we have next. We have identified that we're spending about 10%. And again, as Jennifer mentioned, it's going to vary depending on the agency. But next, we spend about 10% of our time and energy in R&D and that new emerging innovation. It is pretty much a risk-averse focus model, reactive management, and you're handling the now. I met with Mark Andreessen, a venture capital firm out in, well, the venture capital guy out there in Silicon Valley a couple weeks ago, and I asked him this question because we've been talking about the 70-20-10 quite a bit lately, and I asked him what his model was, and he said 100% of next. Or 100% of new, rather. So that's not what we do, but we'll get there. All right, so back to our original statement. We'd like to convince you that there's another model. So we are proposing that by 2020, we can get to this model. Similar to the Coca-Cola model, the 70% of now, 20% of new, and 10% of next. And you'll see that we've taken away, actually, we've entirely added the new category. And there's a reason for that. When you go from the now to the next is that emerging technology, the burgeoning businesses, the R&D, and then you have your now. When you're trying to introduce day-to-day and emerging, you need that middle innovation pipeline. So that's what we're trying to create. Now that's the framework, it's the implementation, it's the culture. We've talked about culture. I'm sure you guys have attended many conferences where we need more culture, better culture, that kind of thing. That's this. It's the openness, it's the collaboration, and it's the innovative link between our lives today and tomorrow. And without it, we're either working on the reactive to-do list or working on our pet projects and the R&D that we never get to plug in on behalf of our users. Now, if you're ready to hear two feds say even more ridiculous things, we'll show you the 2025 model.
We see a future that looks more like this. Now we're at 2025. We are only spending 50% of our time on things now. Employees are seeing things differently. We're working on stuff that actually matters. That's leaving 25% of the time to work on that foundation, the framework, implementation, collaboration, culture that Molly just mentioned. We've adjusted the new category to a full 25% because we have developed a culture that can sustain it. It's not all pet projects and R&D anymore. It's part of our actual business. By this point, we'll have adjusted to being more proactive in our daily working lives, and employees will ask more of what they need and stop tolerating things that they don't need. So how do we get there?
All right, so the first one, it felt right since we're the Office of Venture to mention investing. This is our definition. It's proactively giving something up that matters to you on behalf of a potential outcome that is more attractive than today. And we borrow a lot of concepts from Nicholas Taleb. Taleb. I don't know if you guys have read any of his books, but they're incredible. But when we invest in something, that means you're giving something up on behalf of something better with the very distinct awareness that you might lose both. And we hope you might agree and would consider yourself, regardless of who you work for, whether you're industry or Fed, what level you're at, and at this point, see what we see. That if we act like owner investors in the government, we'll care about it quite differently. And that kind of goes to our earlier point of reducing it from all customers to zero customers. We'd rather be owners. Today, we believe there's very little investment happening to create an innovation economy in the government, so these are the actions that we're recommending. For our 2020 model, and we really are, when we say 2020, we'll show you a countdown timer. I think there's, 288 days? Or three? Yeah, we'll show it to you. We're not math people. Nobody tweet that, please. My mom will get mad. So over the next 2 years, we want to see investments, and we're calling for our peer agencies, our industry partners, and our colleagues that are in the audience to join us in this. And there's a few things that we want you to invest in. First, we want more feds, and I probably would hear a resounding agreement that we want more feds to invest in skepticism. Do we have to follow this acquisition procedure and get that technology 18 months after it's already expired? Really? Do we have to do this? Do we have to be heartbroken in all of our projects and the things that matter the most? And you know good and well that if a little bit of elbow grease was put into a procedural change, it would make all of our lives easier. We would love everybody in this room to steal the idea that we can be skeptics and that we can actually change things in doing so. So please steal the motto that we believe in with all of our everything, that do not immediately accept a no from someone who cannot provide you a yes on anything that actually matters. And make sure your best ideas are heard by the people who set the direction of the business. We do that on LinkedIn. We don't really follow much process when that happens. So invest in each other, and that's our second one. I'll give you 1 second to remember the time that a colleague supported you in a working meeting, and another time when somebody that you respect said yes to something and encouraged you to pursue it. Invest more of that energy into others. We have this ridiculous video that we love very much. I don't know if any of you have seen the second dancer video, but don't Google it now because there'll be loud rave music coming through the room. But it is, what is it? First follower.
Leadership lessons.
Leadership
It's a TED
lessons.
Talk.
It's a TED Talk, but he's narrating a rave dancer in the middle of a green field. Has anybody seen this? Okay, there's one guy. So all of y'all have to see this now. Oh, two. But this guy looks ridiculous in the field, and he's dancing, and another ridiculous guy comes up, and they create a movement, and eventually the entire rave party is happening. It's actually pretty cool. So this is my second dancer. We like to hashtag second dancer on everything.
Second dancer.
She's the lot more logical one, so she invests her skepticism way too much, but you know. And then also, thirdly, invest in yourself. As Taleb says, you should never trust anyone who doesn't have skin in the game. And those who do not have skin in the game can make a lot of mistakes and it won't come back to harm them. So only work with people who have skin in the game and provide that yourself. If we're all gonna work on projects that don't matter to us, but there are many who do. And then we also like to say that you need to find and locate your foxhole allies. If you truly need supporters, you need to find the second dancer. They're somewhere, they're everywhere. We just did an interview earlier and they asked how many staff members we said, and we were like, I think around 15. We're not paying any of them, but they have joined us. They're our foxhole allies. And you know, you can get a lot more done when you're not paying people who have to work for you. Above all, remember that you're not the only one investing in these projects. Others are investing too. And the greatest issue around this, especially in the government space, is that everyone thinks they're a hero coming to save the day, which is our next point.
Don't be a hero. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a high expectation of yourself at work?
Wait, let's ask.
Ask. Yes?
Yes?
No?
Okay.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. Do you think your colleagues at all levels, from the guy that sits beside you to the executive in the C-suite, do you think they perform as highly as you do? It's okay. You can shake your head.
Judged by the chuckles.
We're okay. If you answered yes to the first question and no to the second, you're suffering from hero syndrome. You don't have to carry the organization on your own shoulders. You don't have to be the hero. As we morph into the tomorrow model through the end of 2020, and especially the future model, the culture of your organization should adopt one of collaboration and high expectations, not only of yourself, but of each other. And that way you can perform your best every single day. By 2020, we want to be actively hiring A players. You might not think you matter in the hiring process, but you do. And even if you don't today, you might tomorrow or in 6 months. So actively hire A players. Keep our leaders more accountable. Make sure that what they're putting out there, that they're supporting your work. If they say that they'll support you, make sure that they do. Know the difference between a poor performer and someone who's just pissing you off. Can I say that? They're different things. That usually indicates a communication problem, not a performance problem.
And we put that in there because we piss a lot of people off.
All the time,
So.
almost daily.
Maybe you guys do.
Oftentimes each other. If internal policies don't promote a trust environment, change them. If you're being micromanaged or are micromanaging someone, it needs to be corrected immediately. As we take these steps, a better, more collaborative and trust-based culture will develop and scale, and we'll be able to see this come to fruition by 2025.
All right, so our third one, know your role. Who here has read The Finite and Infinite Games by James P. Carse? No? Okay.
We're obsessed with it right now.
We're giving you tons of recommendations right now.
Write it down. Read it tomorrow.
It's our favorite book right now. If you're taking notes, jot it down. But finite games are played within boundaries, and infinite games are played with boundaries in the sense that they see them, they just necessarily don't acknowledge them. We need both, right? Like in a great organization, you need both functions. But the federal government, for instance, and traditional organizations, I used to work for a bank and they experienced this as well. The average agency and the average traditional organization is largely finite driven. And this means everyone in the organization, or most of them, at least the larger chunk that you see the activity coming from and the flood of the one direction is individuals who are accepting the roles and the behaviors that are expected of those roles. And there are also rules and procedures that each player in the finite game accepts and willingly plays. And we all are victims of this or enjoy this game. It just depends on who you are. Finite games are played for the purpose of winning. They're rewarded with titles, with bonuses, and superficial awards. All of us love all of those things, probably, but that is what they're playing for, and when they're done, they're done. Infinite players, they actually play to keep the game going. They're willing to sacrifice themselves to quit their job or hire somebody to succeed them to keep that game going, to keep the concept and the idea going. So what we're proposing in 2020, we would like finite and infinite players at minimum to understand who they are, what these descriptions are, what it means to the organization. And we are yelling out for participation from the infinite players to identify yourselves, and if it even is remotely curious to you, to have a world with a little less boundaries. That's necessary for our innovation and our venture structure and our world and these new departments that are popping up all over the government. If you're still unsure what it means to think outside of those boundaries, we can help you get there. You can certainly join a brainstorm with us, then we'll probably torment you back into the finite lifestyle. And if you're skeptical of it and you believe that an organization is better because it has process and procedures and things to keep all of us safe, we need you too. We won't have tons of things to talk about and brainstorm on because we don't know how y'all think. But we need that in organizations. We need those rules, and the big ideas need framework for them. So we absolutely need that. What we want in a 2020 world, however, is those two worlds coinciding and cooperating together versus constantly fighting. We see that constantly is you're watching the same movie screen, but you're reading a different script. And that's essentially what happens when these two groups don't know what they're doing. You may have heard a few days ago the United States Digital Service started offering or will be offering acquisition, education, and training around emerging tech. And we got really excited about it until we realized it is, 12 hours a week for 4 to 6 months of training. And that was like, oh my God, I can't do that. And then I realized that's not for someone like me. That's actually for somebody who needs to know the process and the procedures and actually help someone like me purchase that. So if that's even remotely interesting to you, you should pursue that as well. And if you want to be an infinite player with us, then come help us scout the cool tech that we can match with these groups and get these acquisition guys and new trainings. We can put their deal flow in. That will be easy and fun. All right. Now.
Next up, we want you to convert your society. Stop it.
Oh. Can you hear us fighting up here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You can study more on this later. Again, it comes from finite and infinite games. A society can exist within a culture. However, a culture cannot exist within a society. Today, we live in a society. That's the federal organizations that we are feds for or that you work for as developers and contractors. It's a traditional organization. A society plays within boundaries. They have the processes and the procedures and the rules, and they're in place. There's also the red laws, the ones that you don't want to break because you don't feel like going to jail today, maybe tomorrow. They are the blue laws, those processes, procedures, et cetera. And moreover, you should consider that a society is the comfort zone for people, As long as you exist here, you'll be less inclined to think outside of the box. We'll be actively working toward a true culture ecosystem for 2020, which means less society. By 2025, we don't know what it looks like, actually. We don't have that answer for you. We will adjust as we go. So these are the 4 action items that we have for you to steal, but Molly has a 5th one that you can do today, right now, as soon as our talk is done.
All right, so be deviant. You knew this was coming. So deviancy, it's the very essence of culture. And again, to Jennifer's point, what we often mistake as culture is very much society, especially in the federal system. And just because you feel like you're moving along quite well with the amorphous blob of other people, it's not a culture. So that is what we're trying to change. But whoever merely follows the script, merely repeating the past, is culturally impoverished. And deviancy, within reason, we were talking in the back, they recommended that we say just like small deviant behaviors, not like tons. It just kind of depends. Don't tell your boss we recommended it. But then we would like to, we could go to the next slide. Oh, well, I was going to show you one more. Go to the next one.
All right.
Okay, we're deviant, and we want you to join us. And we are also not developers, so I don't want to hear any feedback on that website at all. And if you hack it, I'm coming after you.
We'll make it better over time.
We'll make it better over time, but we pulled this together last night because we really want to start collecting names of people who want to join us and see a 2020 and a 2025. Again, like we mentioned, it's regardless of whether you're industry or whether you're Fed. We've been speaking with Adam quite a lot lately of creating a more open organization, but together. And this is what we think we'll start with. And that's our email address. And we would really love to hear from you. And yeah.
Yeah. So just, here is our stealing. Please steal these ideas. We want you to steal these ideas. If you think that by 2020, that we can have a culture, more of a culture and less of a society in the federal government, please use these. Make them better. We want to share, we want to collaborate, and we want to come up with all of the ideas that we can do to drive the federal government to a true culture and be able to meet that ridiculous goal by 2025 that we put up at the beginning of the presentation.
Yeah, the 50, 25, 25 model of investment, we're mostly broadcasting that right now because we actually want people to debate us on that and where can we get our organizations. We also want to understand where your organization can be versus ours. We obviously have very different groups. So we would love to start an open conversation with you guys, and signing up on that site is the first way to do it, but there's tons of ways to get in touch with us. So thank you.
Be deviant and join us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You ready?